Sandy Says Read. Welcome to the channel. This evening we are going to do another one of these writing craft talks, but it's also going to include a little bit of story time because you guys want to hear the story about when I was almost sued, right? Right. All right, so we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about write what you know versus getting sued. All right. Okay. So, if you're a creative person out there, you have heard the adage, write what you know, okay? It's a good adage to live by. It is. It's a good rule to live by, write what you know. And as creative people, if we run into something that we want to include in a book or in a short story or a screenplay, whatever it is that we're writing, if we run into something that we don't know, we get to research it, right? We get to dive into it and learn more about something, or maybe go to a new place, go to a new restaurant and eat some new type of food. We get to learn some new thing and then write about this new thing that we know, right? It's another cool aspect of being a creative person and getting to do creative stuff. We get to write what we know and then learn new things that we get to write about then. I dig it. It's fun. It's part of the fun of being a creative person. All right. Although, when we're writing what we know, sometimes we can get into trouble. Now, my first publisher, Bob Delinas at Arca Books Publishing, gave us a seminar back in the day, and he was talking about this, write what you know kind of concept, and he gave us some advice on how you can incorporate some of these real world things that we know and we experience all the time, how we can incorporate some of those things into what we're writing and then use that in marketing later. For example, if you go to a specific spot on the beach and there's a certain like a certain kiosk or a certain food stand that you go to, you might be able to, talk with those folks and include them in your story. And then they might be able to help you with marketing later. Does that make sense? Okay, if you go to Planet Fitness all the time and you want to include your character going to Planet Fitness, well, maybe you go to your local Planet Fitness and say, hi, my character is going to be coming here in this book. Would you guys put the book on the counter, for the people who are doing the treadmill to read? You might be able to do some kind of marketing thing like that with them after the book comes out. It seems far-fetched when you just talk about it like this, but it's something that some establishments do. It worked for him. For example, he had a book, and I think it was his book, A Mustard Seed. I think it was that one, where he had a character who would go to a specific restaurant in Naples, Florida, and that character would do reflection there. He would think deep thoughts while he was there and, work through things, right? So after Bob's book was published, he went to that restaurant and said, hey, my main character comes here and thinks deep thoughts, has, plot devices happen here at your restaurant. And the owner of the restaurant was like, that is awesome. That is great. And what they did is they took a large poster of the front cover of the book. They framed it. They put it on the wall in the restaurant. That is great cross promotion. Okay, that is awesome. That is a good example of cross promotion. That is a good example of an establishment appreciating you naming them in your book and giving them free press. Okay? Not all establishments will like that. Not all establishments are going to be excited that you're putting them in a book, even though you're giving them free press. It's free ink. You might have to explain to them, I'm giving you good free press. This is good free ink. If it is, you might not want to say, oh, hey, Planet Fitness, I'm having someone die in your establishment. That they might not appreciate that one. You might have to change the name of the establishment, and then they're probably not going to want to put your book out. You get it. You understand. You're tracking with me here, right? Okay. So write what you know versus getting sued. I need to tell you the getting sued story, but let's back up a little bit. Let's back up to when I was a child. When I was a child, you guys know I used to write stories when I was a little kid. My great-grandmother would read them to the people in her apartment building. And I was getting to meet my grandfather on my mother's side of the family for like the first time, or I don't know, second time maybe, when I was quite young, like 6 or 7 years old. And he had a deformity on his hand. He was missing some of his fingers. And as a child, this struck me, right? I mean, I wasn't around a lot of people who had deformities, right? And so this struck me, and I thought that was new, that was different to me. And so the story I was working on suddenly had a character with not a deformity, but a challenge with one of their hands. And my mom told me that was not a polite thing to do. It was not polite to write about someone that blatantly. She recognized that I was writing about my grandfather in this character. And I was like, well, I changed it though. It's not just like what, my grandpa has. It's different. And she's like, no, but I can tell it's this, you're writing about your grandfather's deformity, and that's not polite, and that's not nice. You can't do that. Like, okay. So I learned a lesson that day, which was to hide better, to hide the thing better. Back then, I wasn't calling it write what you know, but back then I was realizing I was writing what I was observing, but I needed to change what I was observing more. I needed to hide it more. So I carried that into my adult writing. And when I need to combine characters, combine the traits of people I've observed out in the world, I think I do a little bit better job of combining those things and hiding traits from, person at the airport A, person at the airport B, person at the, rental car place C, putting those people together and combining those traits and hiding them a little better. I think I'm better at that now. Well, obviously I'm better at that now than I was when I was 6, right? There you go. What else is on my notes here, guys? Okay, so besides just putting traits from people into the books and into the stories, sometimes we put actual names and actual people in our stories. You guys, if we're going to do something like that, be so very cautious. I'm just saying to you out there that Sandy's advice, be so very cautious about that. Please make sure that the person you're putting in your book knows you're doing it and is okay with you doing it. Perhaps signs a waiver that allows you to do it. It is so not safe to put someone in your book unless they know you're doing it and it's okay. For example, and I'm calling out an author here because I think it's okay. Dwan L. Hearn has released his the Copperwheat collection, short story collection, and in the front of the book he explains that 4 of the stories in here are named after people. Of course, they've got people's names on them. But let me share with you what he says here. Each story bears the name of the D&D player the story was meant for. So he gives a shout out to Katie, Jacob, Brian, and Greg. And these 4 stories in the Copperwheat collection, part of this anthology, are named after those 4 people, Katie, Jacob, Brian, and Greg. And he handles the stories very nicely. He's kind as can be in horror and suspense stories. He's kind to these characters, but these characters know that. Now, what's an awesome thing is those humans out here in the real world, Katie and Jacob and Brian and Greg, they can now help Dwan market this book. Each one of them can say to their friends, hey, I've got a story named after me in this book. Okay? They can do that, and Dwan can share them with the world because he has their permission to do so. Okay? Does that make sense? If you don't have someone's permission to put them in a book and they find out that you've put them in a book, you could be facing a lawsuit. I've never done that. I don't do that. I haven't done that. And I would never. Oh my goodness, no. As authors, we all do this, and I have done this too. I've taken traits from people out there in the world and combined those traits to make up a new character, a character that I have made up for stories and for books, okay? I've done things like that. I've borrowed elements from someone's personality, borrowed phrases that people have said throughout my life, and packed them into a new character that I have created from my imagination. I've done that. But yeah, you're not going to find a person that is a person based on a person. It's not going to happen because it doesn't happen. So let's get to the part where I almost got sued, because I was channeling a person into a character in this novel. She's Not Broken. I was channeling a lady who was a friend of mine into one of the characters, and I was making up. Each of the characters in here is made up. Okay, each of the characters in here, except for the bird. The bird is based on my pet bird, Petrie. The bird Sunny, I'm just going to flat out say it, the bird Sunny is based on Petrie. There you go. Petrie can't sue me over that. But there's a shop owner in this story who, well, not anymore, but there was a shop owner who was not based on, but mostly based on, and then had some elements of other people in her. But this shop owner and the shop were from my life, and I was trying to get some cross promotion with that shop. I was trying to get some attention for that shop. The shop was a bird store that actually existed in Collier County, Florida. It was an actual store. It was a store that I personally frequented and I personally enjoyed and wanted to give some props to. I wanted to give that shop owner and that shop some attention. I was hoping that maybe some cross-marketing would happen. I was hoping that people would see that shop as a beacon of hope, because that shop and that shop owner played a role that was good and positive and helpful for the main character who's getting out of an abusive relationship, a bad relationship. He's getting out of a bad situation, and that shop was helpful. So when the book was ready to go to press, I hit the publish, and I contacted my friend who owned the shop, the real world shop down in Collier County, and said, hey, this has gone to press and I'm getting ready to order extra copies of it. May I order some extra copies to have in your store on consignment, so that we can cross promote? And she flipped out on me. She lost her mind on me. We were on the phone and she lost her mind. And she said, if my store is really in that book, I will sue your ass. That's a direct quote. And I was taken aback by that. I haven't typically had friends threaten to sue me in the past. So I was like, really? Tell me what's going on there? Why are you upset about this? She was really upset. She was mad that I had put her store in a book. She didn't want my help. She didn't want marketing. She didn't want that. I'm like, okay, I got it. I hear you. I will fix it right now. And she's like, you better, or I will sue your ass. I'm like, I'm on it. Let me hang up the phone and let me fix this. Because the thing had already gone to press. I needed to get on that right then. Hung up the phone, spent the rest of the evening into the night changing the scenes, fixing things, changing names. That shop owner that I had, a lot of her characteristics in, I changed more. I yeeted. I put a temp worker in there instead, so there were none of her traits and characteristics at all. None could be there. None could be found. So fix, edit, change, and re-upload the file. Wow. So that was a learning experience for me. I was shocked by that. I was really surprised. I think it was like within a week that she texted me and said something along the lines of, I hope that this doesn't strain our friendship. Like, oh, of course not. Why would this strain our friendship? Kind of let that the friendship just sort of dissipated over the years. And in fact, that shop went out of business. Now, I'm not saying that karma cares at all about me in the universe. But if it did, that would be a weird little bit of karma right there. But yeah, it was weird. I had never had that level of animosity lobbed at me when I was trying to help someone. It was weird. Well, and I now, to be fair, I was trying to help myself too. I mean, I was trying to cross promote, but that was not going to happen. So my advice to you is, if you wish to use something you know in the real world, if you're writing what you know from the real world, get permission from the people you want to write about first. For example, I had, when I was working on one of the Dragons in Space stories, I did a fundraising thing out on like Kickstarter or, one of those Indiegogo, one of those platforms, right? I did a fundraising thing where I asked folks, hey, would you like to be a terraformer? Would you like to ride a dragon in one of my stories? If so, here are the tier levels that you can, submit money to. You can donate to, that's the word I'm looking for, donate. You can donate money to one of these tier levels, and you can be a terraformer, you can ride a dragon, you can do, XYZ, right? I spelled it all out. I was very clear in the things that I would allow the character to do. And I asked the folks, would you like your name for the character? Would you like me to make up a name for your character? That sort of thing, right? And I even put in full disclosure, all the terraformers die. so you're probably not going to make it off this planet alive. I made it very clear what to expect, what not to expect, that sort of thing. And I did have a taker for riding a dragon, so I did have somebody ride a dragon. So yeah, that was one way that I could put folks into the story. I could do so safely, and I could get a little bit of funds to help with marketing the book, like that. And that worked out very nicely. That was a good thing. None of them threatened to sue me. Yeah, but the idea of product placement is kind of sketch to me these days. I mean, you can see movies where you've got product placement all over the place, and you can see Planet Fitness in the background, or you can see a can of Coke, in somebody's hand, right? That's product placement. In our books that talk about things that happen in the real world, you have to be more cautious with product placement because, those things that happen in the movies, they're paying for that product placement. In your book, they don't. It's probably not going to be a good thing for Planet Fitness to see that someone has been murdered in their establishment in your murder mystery novel. They don't want murders happening at Planet Fitness. They don't want to be seen as a place where a murder could happen, right? I'm assuming, allegedly. I should probably throw in a few allegedlys during this video, right? I am certain that the people at Planet Fitness don't want to be known as a place where a murder could happen, right? So they probably would not be excited to have a murder mystery novel talking about a murder happening at their place. So you need to come up with a different name for the establishment where the murder would happen, right? Are you tracking with me here? Of course you are. You get this stuff. This stuff all makes sense. All right. So write what you know versus getting sued. From Sandy's point of view, be cautious with your product placement. Products being the places and things that our characters run into. I usually don't have a problem like that because I write fantasy. I make up new worlds. I take my characters to places that you'd never think of here in our real world. But this particular book was, it was set in Collier County-ish, right? It had people, places, things that were made up, except when I wanted to have something real, like that store where I was like, I could use this opportunity to get people to know that store exists. She didn't want people to know her store existed. She was worried. She was worried that crazy people would find her. I guess that was the excuse I got. You guys, is this enough rambling? I think so. Thumbs up for writing what you know without getting sued over it. please follow along here at the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell notification icon so that you are notified each time I talk about getting sued. And each time we do a book review, because the book reviews are, the more fun content that we do here typically. Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys, and good luck out there in your cross-promotion efforts.